personhood. What is it to be a person under oppression? Which is the bulk of what I will be talking about. And it's just like kind of a bummer. Like, oppression sucks if you didn't know. I'm sure everyone does in the room. Like, it is really hard to feel like you deserve to exist in a world that actively tells you that that's not the case. And the themes of Alien Romulus, much like the rest of the franchise, resonate deeply with the world today. As Gabe was saying, it still hits, and you wish it didn't hit so much because you're like, I wish some of this was fixed. That would have been nice. Where corporate greed thrives at the expense of a disenfranchised, divided, and suffering population. And in the shadows of a mega corporation like Weyland-Yutani, where both humans and machines are reduced to tools for profit, it becomes difficult to believe you matter. It's even harder to envision a path to freedom or resistance. And this struggle is further complicated by the presence of artificial intelligence, which is wielded both as a weapon and as an oppressed entity. The franchise has consistently portrayed artificial beings as eerily human, sometimes as villains, sometimes as saviors. And these beings reflect the essence of sentience, the ability to feel, what makes someone human. Their capacity to care or harm often mirrors how they are treated, suggesting that morality is not innate but shaped by experience and programming. It's a fun choice of words. So when a corporation like Weyland-Yutani denies humanity to both natural and artificial beings, it forces us to ask, what makes a person a person? Is it the memories, morality, and how can we consider these questions without falling into ableist frameworks? Because you're like, what makes the people a people?
Yeah. Well, like, if you're like memories or like the ability to do X, Y, and Z, and it's just like,
yeah.
That's when we get kind of weird, right? Like, not everybody got memories.
There are humans that don't do that already. So, like, it's you gotta be careful, ultimately. And as someone who instinctively anthropomorphizes everything, cough, autism, cough.
I do that always.
I didn't need convincing that the artificial beings in Alien are human. The moment Andy existed and cracked a little silly joke and expressed fear or sadness, I was sold. He's a human. He's as human as anyone. You could draw a face on a rock and tell me it's a people, and I'd be like, yeah, it's just a little guy. You gotta protect him.
Yeah, Rocco is real, Elmo. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like always anthropomorphizing everything. You don't gotta tell me twice. But the connection reflects a broader theme, essentially solidarity between the oppressed. And much like joining the railroad in Fallout or supporting AI in Detroit Become Human, the fight for freedom should unite the exploited, whether human or artificial. Yet systems of harm are creative and insidious, and just as contemporary systems divide people by race, class, gender, or sexuality, Weyland-Yutani thrives by programming the humanity out of both artificial and non-artificial beings. The corporation corrupts all that it touches, stripping artificial beings of their autonomy and suppressing their ability to feel. And in the same way, it corrupts humans with power and greed, turning them into agents of exploitation. So at its core, the film explores identity and freedom, particularly how capitalism isolates and divides us. Rain's journey is a fight not only for physical survival, but also for self-definition. And she seeks to reclaim her identity beyond being just another cog in the Weyland-Yutani oppressive machine. Enslaved alongside her family and everyone else on Jackson's Star, Rain struggles to find herself and protect those she loves. And her story is filled with hard choices. There are many times where I was like, I wish you were doing a different thing, but it's okay. It just made her more relatable because flaws make people human and relatable. And one of the most poignant aspects of her arc is her evolving relationship with her sibling, Andy. And Rain ultimately has to confront her own biases and stand up for Andy's personhood, a pivotal moment that showcases her growth. And Andy's story powerfully illustrates implicit bias, in my opinion. Despite his evident humanity, the crew refuses to see him as an equal. This bias persists regardless of his state, whether subjugated by the programming that prioritizes Rain's life over his own, or freed from that directive and perceived as a threat. For me, Andy's reprogrammed version of himself doesn't feel evil or villainous. He is working for the company in a sense, but like he still is like him, just like a slightly different version of him. And instead it reflects a shift where he's no longer bound to prioritize reign over himself, but still trapped, now serving the company's interests instead of his own. And the state strips him of his true autonomy, but allows him to express long repressed anger and frustration, particularly toward Rain, for the first time. Like, he finally is like, I didn't like that you wanted to leave me here while you went to the other planet. I thought I was your brother, you know, like, we're siblings. What the heck? And for the first time, Andy can openly challenge Rain for not standing up for his humanity when it mattered most. And this autonomy, however limited, allows Andy to express the reasonable frustration of someone who has been dehumanized and oppressed. And the film's refusal to punish Andy for seeking that autonomy is a refreshing subversion of tropes, in that, like, he's not cast as a monster undeserving of empathy and redemption. And I appreciated that about the film. And instead, both Andy and Rain are given the freedom to make their own choices, even if the future remains uncertain. But by the end of the film, obviously spoilers, Andy's injury and his placement in stasis leave us with a bittersweet question. What does it truly mean to be free? And while both Rain and Andy gain the ability to make choices for themselves, their liberation is incomplete. It does suggest like there could be a sequel. That'd be kind of neat. I feel like I actually would watch it. Like, it seems like it'd be fun.
Alien Remus.
Yeah. In the oppressive system, they fought against looms large, leaving us to ponder the price of freedom in a world built to deny it. And the rest of What Will Become Rain is more like, we're, as a society, America and its friends are known to other people. We talked about this extensively in our episode on Us, Jordan Peele's Us, where we delved into the issue of othering and the act of marginalizing and dehumanizing both seen and unseen groups of people. And for a deeper analysis, obviously, particularly on how separating the means for production from what we consume leads to harm, we recommend revisiting that episode. It's just a really good one. People comment on it, say they like it. I think you should check it out if you haven't, because I go into detail way more than I probably will here.
There's also Possessor. We talked about being like data mining. So there's also like a distancing of yourself versus a worker, and separating the means of production can also be harmful in that way. So 2 episodes for your listening pleasure.
There's probably even more. We talk about capitalism a lot.
Worker oppression.
We talk about it a lot. But that one specifically, I remember we did a really good job. So that's why I called it up. But this theme is vividly portrayed in Alien, particularly on Jackson's Star, where humanity's long history of sacrificing one population for the benefit of another comes to the forefront. Earth, in essence, Weyland-Yutani, profits from its colonies, exploiting their resources and human lives, much like how harm is systemically distributed across continents or through mechanisms like forced prison labor. This systemic harm benefits those in power, bringing in wealth and sustaining dominance. And in the Alien franchise, Earth itself remains mostly unseen, with most of the harm happening in space. However, it's clear that someone, either on Earth or somewhere that is not here, likely those running Weyland-Yutani's corporation, is profiting. They're exploiting resources and lives to advance a subset of humanity at the expense of another, paralleling the actions of companies like BlackRock on Earth today, or another example, tech giants like Apple exploiting the resources in the Congo, much like Weyland-Yutani exploits the people of Jackson's Star to create technologies that serve a privileged few.
Yeah. It is. I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that we don't see who's profiting from this. Like, we don't see, like, we only ever see the people who are like harmed or living like the results of that. you know, like, especially Jackson's Star. I keep wanting to say Jackson 5. Jackson's Star, because they're like they're doing the mining and stuff, but they don't get a sun. Like, they live in darkness, and that like definitely represents like the Congo or any other areas like who are at risk of like climate change effects, which are the same places where we're stealing the resources from. So it's just like an exacerbated issue of like it doesn't end.
And like it's the whole the bulk of what we talked about in Us is that like we're fine accepting, well, not like everybody, but like people are fighting it obviously, but like as a society as a whole, we kind of don't talk about the cost of all of our convenience
Mm-hmm.
And that like the cost is that there's somebody, just like we were rooting for Rain
Mm-hmm.
and the crew to survive this. We thought the mines were oppressive and we thought no one should have to do that. But there are lots of people who will just like be like, all right, cool, but I need a phone, or
Mm-hmm.
I need
Or I
this
need
thing.
this new T-shirt.
Yeah. I need this consumable thing at the cost of someone's safety, autonomy, and like their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, as I said, stems from like exploitation of countries, or as well as just like in our own country with prison
Mm-hmm.
labor, and like those people do not have a choice on whether or
Yeah.
not they want to work on what they're forced to work on. And
They
they're
work full
just,
jobs. They like go
yeah,
and
for
work in the
no
fast
money,
food
like
industry,
cents.
and they
Yeah.
pay for transportation.
Yeah. Literally they get like cents on the dollar. Like it's absurd.
Insanity.
Yeah. So it's just like you're willing to accept that for your quick, convenient, I don't have to think about it, my life's slightly easier now. But their life is exponentially harder. And that's fine, according to some. So it's like kind of like calling that out, because the whole thing is that someone's benefiting from all these mining and the resources. The reason they're not free is not just because someone's an asshole.
Because they don't want it bad enough, you know?
Yeah, it's not like they did something they don't deserve to be free. Like that's not ever the case. Except for like very rare circumstances where they murdered a bunch of people and that's why they're in jail. Like that's the one maybe okay thing. But like the rest of it is pretty suspect, and you're basically saying I want slavery, but we can't say we want slavery. That's the subtext to that. Yeah. So the real world parallels in our world, the exploitation seen in Alien is already happening. This isn't some dystopian future. Mining operations in countries where workers are forced into indentured servitude or outright slavery, and in prisons exploiting incarcerated people for cheap labor. Why do we empathize with characters like Rain and Andy in fictional stories, but fail to extend the same empathy to real life counterparts? Without acknowledging and addressing the systems of harm and exploitation around us, we risk perpetuating the cycle of dehumanization and suffering. And the film challenges us to reflect on what it truly means to be free under an oppressive force. And it urges us to resist the impulse to other one another based on majority narratives, such as like, he's not real human. He artificial whatever. He still has emotions and capacity to believe that he is alive. So that's enough for me, and it should be enough for anybody. So basically wants us to resist the impulse to other one another based on the majority narratives and inspire us to embrace our shared humanity, even if it's hard. It's not always going to be the easy thing to stand up for stuff. And despite the systems designed to divide and dehumanize us. And I offer some ways to help. I'm going to try to expand it more, but right now I have things to read. So there is a book, Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives. Let This Radicalize You, on Organizing in the Revolution of Reciprocal Care, Emergent Strategy, and a bunch of other ones. So highly recommend checking out our blog this week to see some supplemental reading. And also like hopefully some petitions and things you can be doing to build community where you are. So
because like you said, we and like I said, right, it is in science fiction world. They're in space and they're fighting aliens. But so much of the real fight, like that they're like what drove them to those acts of desperation and to put themselves in harm's way, put each other in harm's way, to devalue the humanity in anyone, right? With Andy or Rain. Like there's also like they look down on Rain too. Even what's happening on Jackson's Star, like the abuse that Andy was suffering from other people. And I think there was a lot of intentionality in writing Andy to be that way. Like it definitely drove him up to be way more sympathetic, and you're rooting for him in a way that was a little different than I think some of the other androids we met previously. Like especially ones that we knew were androids pretty quickly. Other times like we felt strongly connected to someone and then it's revealed that they're an android and you're like, oh,
so different. Cool.
But I think like a lot of the underlying themes and what is being explored, if you take away the overt science fiction of it, it becomes just somebody in the world is experiencing this very same thing, right? Is putting themselves in danger to escape where they're being oppressed and harmed,
Yeah.
to escape a system that is, you know, in ways killed their family and threatens to kill them, right?
Yeah.
And someone is benefiting, and odds are it's you, listener,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, I think it's always like important to firstly be aware
Yeah.
of how you get things, where things come from. Like that is always the first step, right? But there's a lot to it, and I think one of the things is to understand that all of these issues are connected, right? It's, you know,
No one thing is going to solve the problem. And also,
yeah.
there's like, if there's like one brand of food that you can eat and not vomit on the floor, like, yes, obvious, and that brand causes harm, obviously still get the brand.
Mm-hmm.
You need to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's like layers to it, but it's like, you need to know what you're consuming so you can do so at least slightly more ethically.
Yeah. And I think, and you know, and it's not entirely on us to do these little things that we can do to like either save the world or make that impact. It's bigger than that. Like it's coming together, it's being in community, it's being that revolution, being the system, because it is all interconnected systems, right? The fact that the resources that we want are in the Congo, and so there's racism which allows us to harm these specific people because they're deemed as less than people, right? Like it can go so much farther because of where it is, like flat out. Right? So like, and it's not going to be repaired or fixed because of where it is, because of who they are, right? And so we have to acknowledge all of those interconnected harmful systems that are allowing that oppression to occur, and the damage to occur. So yeah, definitely do some reading. I do hope that, you know, the books and the petitions and the things that we share are motivating. I hope you enjoy the film, because it is really fun. It's a fun horror film.
Even if you're like, the first time we were talking about it, I was like, I just went in for funsies. I was like, I wasn't even media analysis in it. I was just having a good time. And it wasn't until after that I like went back and I was like, oh yeah, I was saying that.
Yeah. And
so you can just enjoy it. You can just have fun.
Yeah.
It's loud.
And sometimes it happens like in the back of your mind where you like, you start it and you're like, oh, right, that's what that means. You know? That happens all the time where I'm like, of course. Like, it's so easy for me. And especially like Alien as a franchise has done it so well, like blended real horrors with that. And it's like such a understandable, believable evil. Weyland-Yutani. Like those exist. That's why cyberpunk is so interesting to me. It's like, I know those people. Like I know this company. Like I bought from them. You know, like we're naming things. iRobot. That was a cautionary tale. They said don't do this, and we made iRobot.
Yeah, and it's like the whole thing where it's like we see characters in media and we empathize with them, but why can we not empathize with our neighbor? You know what I mean? It's just like such a thing. Because the stories just keep repeating. You know what I mean? It's the same horrors. And it's like telling you kind of how to deal with it. And then like people are like, actually, I don't think anyone should have healthcare. And it's like, how? You were just enjoying Katniss Everdeen. What do you mean? You know what I mean? It's a whole thing.
Yeah. You can't like read A Handmaid's Tale and be like,
you watched Wicked.
Trad
you
wife.
were voting for, or like you're rooting for.
Yeah, exactly.
I forget her name now.
I mean, it's easy.
ADHD, whatever. It's fine. I forgot the Wicked character.
Oh, Elphaba.
Yeah, Elphaba. People love her, but like can't.
But don't love Kamala.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so interesting. Educated, colored woman.
Yeah.
Going up against. Yeah. Anyway. Yes. I agree. And I think it's because it is, for some people, fantasy.
Yeah.
It is science fiction. Even the reality horrors are science fiction and fantasy because they seem so far off. They're so disconnected that that's not real. So I'm not doing anything wrong. If I were in this, I'd obviously know and I would fight and I would do the thing. Like it's very easy to get caught up in that. And like, I understand how they get there. It still really sucks. It's super unfortunate for all of us. Mad unfortunate for all of us. But yeah, that being said, I think, this is a great way to close out the year. I think we've learned a lot. We had a good amount of fun and also like a good balance of, our heavier topics with fun things and learning. And, we're going to keep persisting. We're still going to be here. We're still going to be putting on our media literacy classes and offering you some tools and insights into media that you might find even just simply entertaining, right? And our hope is always that, like, while you're being entertained by media, that you do give it a second look and you do think and you realize that some of these horrors are not so far-fetched, right? Like, obviously there's not Leatherface running around with a chainsaw, right? He's based on many real serial killers, but that's not really the thing, right? That's not what I'm worried about, right? Instead, it's like, watch X and think about, like, the porn industry and its harm and our like horrible relationship in America with sexuality. And just, like, so, like, those things, like, we just hope that you're always learning and that you're enjoying learning with us. And if you are, always remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment. We love to hear from you, and we're looking forward to the new year just for what content more we can unpack with you and experience. And we're still here, and we hope you are still there, and we'll see you in 2025.
We will be there.
Begrudgingly,
but there,
water. We'll be there, and then we won't be square. Anyway, don't get married.
Chickens.
Warrior Kid is the offspring, and that thing was terrifying. That's just a guy. That's just a really tall man. Yeah. And I feel bad. It makes me, like, imagine, like, you're just a tall guy, and they come up and they're like, we really need you
to be horrified. I mean, they added a lot to him to make him scarier. I saw, like, a picture of him, actually, and I was like, you just look like a guy. Yeah. But, like, once they put all the makeup and all the tail and all that other stuff, that's where I was like, oh,
you look creepy, dude. Do you want to get in this movie for me? It would be again, I stand by it. It is a dream of mine. Somebody hire me to become a creature. I don't even know if I'll be very good at it. I just want to be a creature. Put me in a prosthetic. Make me LSU. Like, it'd be something cool. I want to do it.
I wish in a past life I was a creepy kid in a horror movie, but alas. I'm too big now. I'm adult.
Could be orphan, whatever. Okay, bye.
Bye.